Can you hear me? That's all that matters. No, you can't hear me. Now. Okay?
I hear you fine.
Oh, good. Well, hello everyone. I'd like to introduce Dave Barry, who was born in the same year as the majority of my husbands, who was an English major, and who has spent much of his life joking around about serious subjects. He has written more than... Okay, how about now? He has written more than 30 books, including Boogers Are My Beat and Dave Barry Hits Below the Beltway. He has also had at least one colonoscopy, and there are some dogs who want to ask him about that. More on this later in the program. To begin with, I would like to read a passage from his latest book, which is entitled Dave Barry's Guide to Sex Education for Middle Schoolers. Based on this research, I would like to say that the best way to understand a vasectomy is to compare human reproduction to the New York City transit system, with Manhattan as the penis. In normal reproduction, the sperm cells originate in the testicles, represented by Brooklyn and Queens, then proceed via the vas deferens, represented by the Brooklyn Bridge and the Queens Midtown Tunnel, to Manhattan, where they join up with the seminal fluid, manufactured by the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland, represented by Staten Island. The sperm cells then travel through a long tube called the urethra, represented by the IRT Broadway local line, exiting Manhattan at the tip and being deposited in the female vagina, represented by Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. In a vasectomy, the doctor severs the conduits from Brooklyn and Queens, leaving the sperm cells trapped in the outer boroughs, where they eventually die because there are no decent nightclubs. Vasectomy is a safe, effective, and reliable procedure, and there is absolutely no reason to be afraid of it, except that
they cut a hole in your scrotum.
So, thank you.
You would pick that.
I've read it to everybody I know now.
Okay, thank you.
But as I was reading this, I wondered, and this is my first question, have you ever thought of a joke about something and decided that it was inappropriate before making the joke?
I guess that passage would bring that thought to mind. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've probably rejected more jokes than I've actually printed, because a lot of things that I think of are really... I wrote a lot for newspapers over the years, and you have to try to be... Like that piece, I could not have gotten into a newspaper column. But, so yeah, I would say that many times I had to self-censor. Not as much as a lot of editors would have wished that I had. So, but.
Well, I guess going on from that, could you tell us one of those jokes now?
None is coming to mind.
Oh, maybe something will come up
later on that I would.
You could get inspiration from the painting.
From the gals behind us. Yeah. No, it's not working for me.
Okay. I have 3 questions. I'm going to drop this.
We'll recycle that later.
You know, there's a long article in here about dogs.
Yes.
And I did read this to my dogs.
Okay. How'd they like it?
And Well, they were a little miffed, I have to say. And they were also quite interested about your colonoscopy. And they would like you to be more precise about the results of your colonoscopy.
Well, the actual reason I ended up writing this book because of a colonoscopy. I'll back up a little bit. I have a younger brother named Sam who's 10 years younger than I am, but is much more responsible than I am. And he got a colonoscopy when you're supposed to get one. When he turned 50, the doctor told him to get one, and he got one. And then he sent me and my other brother an email that said, I just got a colonoscopy and they found cancer. And before I go on, I should say it's fine. They caught it early. They corrected it, and Sam is fine now. But he said the doctor said that you should get, that your siblings should get screened because it runs in the family. And he said to me, I assume you've already been screened because I was 10 years old, but I hadn't. And I never got a colonoscopy because I'm a coward. I mean, it's a miracle I ever let them to get back to cut a hole in my scrotum because I'm not really big on medical procedures. And so I got one. And just those of you, anybody in the audience here who has been holding back on getting a colonoscopy, it's probably the same reason I did, which is you're afraid that they're going to stick a tube 17,000 feet up your butt. And they are. That is exactly what they do. In fact, the big danger of the procedure is that it will go out of you and enter another patient. So they have a guy there with a hatchet to cut it off. It gets loose in the... But it really is actually... Have you ever had I don't want to be,
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
But soon.
Soon, okay. But it's really not bad. In fact, this is going to be weird to say. It's kind of pleasant. It reminded me of a lot of the 60s, if you know what I mean. And I didn't even realize that it happened when it was over. The only part that was a little...
That was like the 60s.
That was exactly like the 60s, yeah. I kind of thought, I could do recreational colonoscopies, That's how good it was. But the part that was, be advised, they have music playing, at least when I got it, they had music playing in the procedure room, which is, I think, supposed to relax you. Except that the song that came on as they were putting me under, and as Dr. Sable was coming toward me with the thing, the song that came over the PA system...
about the diameter of the thing.
The thing is bigger than you would like,
Like, compared to, say, the microphone?
Okay, it's small. If it had been that big, no matter what drugs they give me, I'd have been out of there with a gown flapping behind me. But no, it's...
This is the outside limit.
You wouldn't even want to get near that. I don't know you that well, Jane. But I'm thinking, for most people, the microphone.
Okay.
Anyway, but the song that came over the PA just as I was going under, was Dancing Queen, which is not the song you want to hear in that situation. But other than that, it's fun. The other thing is, be advised that the preparation, and you will,
This is what I've been afraid of.
Yes.
Actually. Yeah.
They have to clean you out pretty good, so they give you this nuclear laxative, so powerful that your bowels travel into the future, and you expel food you have not even eaten yet. Okay, it's and have you ever seen a space shuttle go up? That's not to be too graphic, but that's kind of the experience. You're going to wish you had a seatbelt on your come over. You're getting excited here, aren't you? Just saying that. Anyway.
Okay. But the dog...
It didn't take us long to get there, did it?
Not at all. Clearly, that's the point of the whole volume. So
right. Scott Turow is going to go his whole talk, and he's never going to get there.
Never once. However,
And I got there in like 5 minutes.
I have 3 dogs, so they have 3 questions. The German Shorthair says, "May I be present at your next one?"
They are really kind of dogs. That's one of the things we love about dogs. When you are like at your you've got like the flu, and you haven't taken a shower in 3 or 4 days, and you can smell
She's a very sympathetic dog.
Yeah, and you're sitting on the toilet, whatever, and the dog is like, you have never smelled more interesting. They're like, they're right there for you. So, but I'm sorry.
My Jack Russell Terrier has a third question for it. Did any of the results from your colonoscopy get on the tires of your car? And could you back the vehicle up slightly so that I could have access to that?
They are like that. It's like nothing. I have a chapter in the book about dogs and eating. And the dogs, if you've had dogs, you know that there's nothing that is too disgusting for them to eat, because their theory is, and it's worked for them over the millions of years, might as well eat it now, and you can always throw it up later.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's not, so like ancient.
For the children.
Exactly. Or just, and then what's really kind of bad about it is, I mean, I guess they don't care, but the same dog will throw something and then come around later and go, hey, what's this? You know? And they recycle that way, the dog.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of standards for.
I think it's a good thing though, because there's less to clean up.
And then they'll like, I once dropped a turkey on the floor Thanksgiving, and at the time I had two dogs. I had a large Maine dog named Ernest and a small emergency backup dog named Zippy. And the turkey fell and made this big grease splat, you know, and I picked it back up, and we did use the turkey. I mean, we got it off the floor pretty quick, you know.
Was it flat?
It wasn't flat. It was like, it just, but it didn't look as good. It looked a little asymmetrical.
Yeah.
You know, but the dogs really remembered that spot. There was like those historical markers they put on the side of a highway. It's like, this is where that turkey fell. And like a year later, they'd go by and go, wait a minute, you know, there might be a molecule of turkey grease still there that I could get into. You know how they do? So, yeah, they're not, you know, are you one of those, I don't mean to be interviewing you, although I should be interviewing Jane Smiley, who's a better writer than I am. So it seems a little weird here to be in this situation. But are you one of those people who believe that dogs are really smart? Because like sometimes, I've written many columns, basically the premise of which is, I really love dogs, but they are not the rocket science of the animal or even necessarily the mineral kingdom.
I have experienced a couple of smart dogs, one of which was a Jack Russell, but we called her a beast rather than a dog, and she was really, really smart.
Like,
when you say really uniform,
like, tell me one smart thing. I'm going to put you on. Tell me the smart thing she did. Like, you didn't let her handle your investments, right?
No. Jack Russells are killers.
Yeah.
And so the new Jack Russell puppy had found himself a gopher, and he had bitten it a few times and it was struggling. And the old Jack Russell was sitting maybe 10 feet away. And I said in exactly this tone, I said, Casey, you better come over and kill this thing because he's not going to. And she walked over, she snapped its neck and walked away. But she's the only dog I ever saw who would jump onto the roof so that my partner could throw the ball for her if he was working on the roof. And she would hold the ball with her paw so that it wouldn't roll
off the roof.
So she knew all about trajectory, she knew all about gravity, she knew about everything, but she was unusual.
So this dog should be in Congress. This dog is... Okay, well,
she would be a good congressman.
I don't doubt it. She has my vote. Yeah. She has my vote. Okay, I'm going to tell the other side of that. My dogs, I had the Ernest and Zippy, they were my dogs when Hurricane Andrew hit Miami. I live in Miami. Hurricane Andrew passed directly over what was my house, pretty much. And prior to Hurricane Andrew, I let Ernest and Zippy out every morning via a two-stage procedure. And as you know, letting a dog out, if anybody has a dog, going out in the morning is a huge thing for the dog. It's very exciting. The dog can't believe you thought of it, even though you do it every day. It's like, whoa, that's a great idea. We're going, you know, and it was two stages. I would open the back door to the house, and then we had a patio with a screen enclosure, which in South Florida you need to keep the mosquitoes from stealing your patio furniture. And so I'd open the back door, and they would run across to the screen door and wait for me, you know, all excited, and I would go open the screen door, and they would go out into the yard. So we did that every day for literally years, back door, screen door, yard, and they learned that procedure. So comes Hurricane Andrew, and the screen enclosure is orbiting the Earth, okay? It's gone. but the screen door was still there.
Was the house still
The
there?
house was mostly there. The screen enclosure was gone, but there was like this door, like a sculpture at the end of the patio with nothing around it but yard. And it was like a 2-week learning curve for Ernest and Zippy. I opened the back door, and they would run to the screen door and literally and wait there for me to open it, because that was the procedure, you know?
I'm going to tell you a story that I think speaks to this issue of dog intelligence. At one point, we found an intelligence test for dogs in the back of a dog book, and it had 10 questions. And the last question was, you show the dog a little item, a treat or something, and you put it under a cup. And then you wait to see what the dog is going to do. Well, we did this to the golden retriever. We showed her the thing, put it under the cup. She knocked the cup over, took the treat. Showed it to the Great Dane, put it under the cup. He just stood there. And I turned to my husband, at the time also born in 47, that one was, and I said, I guess he isn't very smart. And he says, he knows it's your treat. And I did signal to him then that he could get the treat. He knocked the cup over and took the treat. So maybe your dogs were just being polite. Maybe they thought you didn't know.
Yeah.
They sensed your grief at the loss of property.
Or they're thinking, he thinks this is how we get out.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to break it to him too soon that his screen enclosure is gone here. You know, he's going to be depressed. Well, they did fill out the insurance form, so you may be right. That's all right.
So, all right. So we've had colonoscopies in dogs. So I think the next thing we have to talk about is religion.
Okay, yeah, it does. I can see where you're going.
Before cosmetics.
Yeah.
I have a question, though.
Okay.
You mentioned here that you do have a religious affiliation, and that it is Joketarianism.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that's a great, great religious affiliation. And I'm wondering a little bit about the theology of Joketarianism.
Well, I'm not a particularly religious person, so I invented this Joketarianism. The idea is that we believe that it's possible that the universe was created by an all-knowing, all-wise supreme being. But if that's the case, he was obviously kidding.
Okay.
You know,
Jesus laughed.
Yeah. So that I belong. My dad was a Presbyterian minister, and his dad was a Presbyterian minister. I'm going to hell personally, but I'm not a particularly religious person. But I do belong to a temple because my wife is Cuban Jewish. Juban, they call themselves. And they didn't take rafts over from Cuba. They parted the Caribbean. Whoa, that's how but she's kind of one of the, you know, like a lot of Jews. They're Jewish more by tradition than they are. And so I wrote a chapter called Judaism for Christians, trying to explain, if you're in my situation, what adjustments you have to make to the Jewish religion. And basically what I concluded is that whereas Christians divided up their worship up into weekly installments throughout the year, Jews save it all up for 2 or 3 weekends where they go for like 18,000 hours and so what will happen is periodically, and I never know when it's coming. You know, never know when it's coming. She'll say, you know,
which calendar are you on?
Exactly. Yeah. She'll say, tomorrow is, you know, it's Harish Kadoma, and or it sounds like Harish Kadoma. It could be any. And I'll say, is that one of the important ones? She goes, and she gets all miffed, and she goes, that's the second most holy day in the Jewish. She has like 8 of them. They're all the second most holy day. And it means we have to go to the temple and sit there forever until they blow the horn of a ram, you know, which really pisses off the ram.
Now, I've never seen that, but which end do they blow into?
We get there late, so we're way far away from the guy going, woo! It's like all I hear is that. It could be that I didn't even know what end of the ram that's coming out of, to be honest. what I know is I'm happy when it happens because it means there's only like 8 or 9 more hours to go.
That's good.
Almost
That's
done with this ceremony there.
We know you're a truly patient person because of the recitals.
Oh, yeah.
But wait, before we get on to recitals,
Yes.
we still need to talk a little about theology.
Okay.
So, in Jokatarianism, what is the nature of good and evil?
We don't really have good and evil. We just have, can we make a joke out of that or not? If something that's really bad for humanity, but it's funny, that's okay with us. You know, we're not really a good religion. We're not ethical that way. We're just more thinking of ourselves.
Okay. There's a lot of religions like that.
Almost all of them, if you ask me, but okay.
Okay, so question 2. How do Jokatarians view the rapture?
We can't wait. That much less traffic for us, you know what I mean?
I would think that maybe you were thinking you were going to be laughed up.
Oh, that would be good too. Well, then if we go but they don't, I'm okay with it too. I just don't want to go with them.
Oh, okay.
Wherever the rapture people are going, I don't want to be there, you know?
So the rapture would be defined as laughing yourself to death.
Okay, that would be good with me.
Okay.
You gave this way more thought than I did, I just want to say.
Well,
I
have to say, I think I've suffered a conversion experience because normally I label myself an indifferentist.
Okay, that's it. Have you ever heard of...
But I think a Jokatarian is way better, yeah.
Okay, here's one. I didn't invent this, but I always liked it. You ever hear of Presbyterianism?
No.
They believe that when you die, your soul goes up on the roof and you can't get it.
And somebody ever said that to you, but that wasn't your own original idea?
No, that was somebody who said that. I thought, wow, that's a great religion. I like that.
People come up to you all the time, right? And they'll say anything that comes out of their minds.
You know what people do to me, and I don't know why, but I'm used to it now. I'll be, I live in fairly normal existence, and I'll be at the supermarket, and I'm buying cereal, and somebody will come up to me and they'll get this look, and I'll know it's coming. They'll go, "Are you going to write a column about this?" And I go, "I'm just trying to decide which size Special K box to get." I don't. And they think that I just live in this world where it's like a sitcom. That there should be laughter around me all the time and wacky neighbors, coming around. If that happened, if wacky neighbors came around, I would get a machine gun,
Well, that brings up another political issue, which is, are you armed?
No, I'm probably one of the only. I live in Miami. I say, I moved there in 1986 from the United States, and I did propose a tourism promotion slogan for the city of Miami. It was, "Come back to Miami, we weren't shooting at you." But I actually don't own a firearm, and maybe I'm the only person on my block who doesn't.
But what if you were at the grocery store and terrorists came in? How would you protect yourself?
I would say, "Here, this is, take my Special K."
Oh, okay.
I would be a coward.
So you wouldn't feel it was your obligation to draw your concealed weapon
To defend the public? No, I don't think so.
Shoot a lot of citizens in the crossfire.
Well, I'd think about it if I had the weapon. No, I wouldn't. I would be cowering. I would be, making wee-wee on the cornflakes. I would not be the guy protecting the supermarket.
Okay. Okay, one last question about Jokatarianism. I really am fascinated.
You are, yeah.
I love this.
I should have written more about it.
I think we've seen the Reformation, and it is here. And that is, so according to Jokatarians, what happened when the rabbi, the priest, and the Buddha walked into the bar?
Something really funny that I can't think of right now.
Well, you guys can think about it. I
No.
don't know. All right, so we've talked about religion. We've talked about the right to concealed carry. We've talked about dogs, obviously a very important topic. And we've talked about, what was that other thing? Colonoscopies.
They're very good. They're
We
keeping
haven't
track.
really talked about boogers. And so of the 30 books that you have written, including Boogers Are My Beat, Do you have one that you feel really expresses your inner self more than some of the others? Because all novelists and writers must feel this, I think.
Here's where you're wrong. Ms. Pulitzer Prize winning now.
Well, I didn't win it for making people laugh.
No, but I think I'm the only writer I know who has no inner self at all. You know? No, I mean that.
And that's fully on display in this book.
In fact, like I always think like all I ever wanted to do was amuse people, and I don't really think I have any deep thoughts. And sometimes people will say to me, you know, I read that column, and it's funny and everything, but I think you really made a couple of good points in there. And my reaction is, no, I didn't. I would probably know if I had, but I don't think I did. You know, I just think I'm a really deeply shallow human being.
But there's a river of inspiration from somewhere.
Right, but what I think it is it's the sincere desire to A, have people like me, and B, not to have to get a job that requires work, labor of any kind, or
Well, are your brothers funny too?
Yeah, everybody in my family is pretty funny.
So do you think it's genetic?
I don't know. I think it's mostly because my parents were very funny. I lived in a very sarcasm-intensive house. Our childhood was like, sarcasm was like the basic communication device in our house. I don't think anybody ever said anything that he or she meant in my entire childhood to anybody else.
That's tragic.
No, it was great. My mom was the most, she was a kind of, now that I look back, she was kind of a tormented person and she had her problems, but she was very different from all the other moms. I grew up in this little town called Armonk, New York, and it was you've been okay, yeah. Well, back then it was just this little town, and we knew everybody in the town, everybody knew us. It was like small town life. But my mom was very different from the other moms. And when my sister and I would go, I'll never forget, we were going swimming, at this lake near our house. And my mom opened the kitchen window that looked out on the path we're leaving and goes, "Don't drown, kids." And we go, "We won't." And we thought that was very funny. But other kids' moms wouldn't have said that. We would go to downtown, go with errands with my mom, and there was like Bracetti's Market, and we would go around do the errands. And the trades guys all knew my mom, and they loved her. And they go in, and we go in there to Bracetti's Market, and Ray Bracetti would be behind the butcher's counter cutting up the meat and everything, and there'd be all these other moms around there. And he'd go, "How you doing, Marion?" And she'd go, "Just shitty, Ray." And all the other moms would turn around like that. She was an edgy lady, and she never ever stopped. This may sound a little shocking, this anecdote, but it was so true to my mom's personality. When my dad died, we went to, we had him cremated, and then my siblings and I, and my mom and I went to the cemetery to bury him. We dug the hole and put him in, that's what we did. And it's like, we're crying and weeping and hug each other and everything like that. And we're there for a while. And then as we leave, I've got my arm around my mother, and we're walking out there, and we're all just, and she starts looking down at the headstones along the way, and she goes, "So that's why we never see him anymore." And we all start laughing, because it was very funny, but, and that was my mom. She just didn't ever. So whenever people say, "Where do you get your sense of humor?" I got my sense of humor from my mom, because the last thing you did in my house was take something seriously. That would be disappointing.
That's kind of the way I grew up too.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to grow up.
Yeah, I never objected to it. I always felt like I had an edge because of that. Because if you never take anything too seriously, you'll never get sucked into anything. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Keep them laughing.
Well, you'll never be a Scientologist or anything. Unless somebody is, in which case it's fine with me.
So, to go back to this point, you don't feel that any of your books are really, closer, more characteristic of you, more your own particular sensibility?
Well, they are in the sense that, if you read my books, you'll see what I think's funny, but I'm honestly not very introspective, so I don't even know the answer to the question. It's sort of embarrassing, but I don't. I couldn't really tell you for sure what I really, really, really am like deep inside. I don't think I want to know.
Well, one of the things that interests me about the book, especially, there are a couple of pieces that were fiction or were screenplay, they were stories. And they were really hilarious.
About my attempt to become a Hollywood...
Yes, there was that one, and then the other one that makes fun of the vampire.
Oh, yeah. I wrote I read the Twilight. How many people have read the Twilight series? Very few people admitting to it here.
Come on,
hugely popular.
Come clean.
Yeah, I read them.
What's wrong with you people? You're so out of the mainstream.
I can't believe these people.
Isn't it something?
They call themselves hipsters. Anyway, I read them, and here's the problem with the whole vampire, the Twilight series, as far as I'm concerned. Let's just say there are vampires, and let's say they are brilliant, really good-looking, wealthy, cultured, sophisticated beings who've been around for a couple of 100 years. What would they choose to do in American society? Be high school students? That's the premise of that book. They're going to high school. Who's going to do that? And so I thought, wow, that's really crazy. And then the whole idea that teenage girls would be really attracted to, guys with the same body temperature as an Eskimo pie who want to suck their blood. I didn't get that part. Now, you're a woman, admit it. Do you find that, did you see the...
No, I haven't seen any of it.
Oh, okay.
I read horse books. I don't read vampire books.
Can I ask you about horses?
Sure. But
Okay.
I'd like to
No,
read
come on, don't run away from the
I would
horses.
I would like to let the audience enjoy the first
Oh, okay, go
paragraph
ahead.
of the vampire. This is chapter 1, warning. With a feeling of ominous foreboding based on the cliffhanger ending of the last book, I turned my battered old pickup truck into the last remaining parking spot outside of Creepstone High School. I glanced in the rearview mirror and scrunched my forehead in dismay as I realized for the millionth time that I do not consider myself at all attractive, although roughly 85% of the male characters that I encounter either fall in love with me or want to kill me or both. And in the movie version, I am portrayed by a total babe.
Now, horses. Here's the thing. I know Jane Smiley, she's a huge horse person.
I love horses.
She owns horses. You have race horses.
Yeah, I do. One.
Everybody I ever know who has had horses, it always said, I love the horse. And then a little bit later, they show me an enormous scar where the horse took out okay, see?
You can't see them, but there's 2 plates and 14 pins in there.
That's the thing.
But it's little enough.
It's
really far from my neck.
It doesn't bother you that the animal could, you're hanging around with an animal that could really easily kill you and no jury in the land would convict it because it's a horse.
I'm 60 now. I don't give a shit.
They always make me nervous. The other thing about them is you can see one eyeball or the other eyeball, but you never know what the other eyeball's doing when you're looking at them. They're like, I like a dog.
True,
you can look a dog right in the eye, and you know what the dog is thinking. Not very much. The dog's saying, maybe he'll give me food soon.
No, I do actually believe horses are more intelligent than dogs.
You do really?
Yeah, I do.
That's another thing that I don't like about them.
That they're more intelligent.
Yeah, because
than dogs?
if he's smart, they're thinking, why am I letting people sit on me? I'm going to throw them off and trample them to death. No jury in the land will convict me. I'm a horse.
Well, some of them do think that, but mine don't. Mine are very.
Oh yeah, your horse is different.
They are. They're very kind and they're used to me and they're forgiving. So.
Okay.
Yeah. I take care though. I always wear my helmet. Now there is.
I don't ever wear a helmet with my dogs.
I have something for you that you could wear though. there is an inflatable vest that you wear when you're riding your horse, and as you're being tossed off the horse, you're supposed to pull the string, and then you bounce.
I could have used a vest like that last night. No, seriously, it was a long
Was
walk
that
back.
when you were in the bar with the rabbi, the priest, and the Buddha?
I don't remember seeing them there, but I was in a bar, and it was a difficult walk back to the hotel, and it would have been handy if I could have.
It's a great thing.
Seriously, they have you just. But what if you? I mean,
What if you forget as you're
geez, being
being
thrown.
taught?
If I'm being thrown off a horse, I'm not thinking I'm gonna. Oh, little
That's
string
what I
there.
thought too.
Yeah.
And it only pops once. So if you mistake it the first time, you got to buy a whole new one for $245.
Do you have one of these vests?
No, I didn't. I told you I don't give a shit.
Okay.
So we've been at this for about 40 minutes. Would you like to ask questions?
Wait, I'm going to say one more thing if we're going to go to questions, which is Jane Smiley has a book out. We're talking about my book, but she has a book out called Private Life.
Yes, why don't you hold that one up?
Yeah.
There isn't a laugh in the entire book. I exhausted my laugh track capacity in 10 Days in the Hills, so I had to write something else, so I wrote this one.
I'm reading this book, and it's really a great book. So I just want to
Thank you.
just get that. It is a truly wonderful book.
Thank
and I have a question to ask you about it, if I may.
Yeah.
Do you, all the detail, the historical detail, where do you get all that stuff? Where do you
Wikipedia.
Really? That's where you
Not all of it, but a lot of it. You know, Wikipedia is really great for novelists because the facts don't have to be correct if you're writing. They just have to be something that somebody thinks. They just have to be inside somebody's point of view. So the facts could be or couldn't be correct, but the character can express those facts. In fact, if the character expressed facts that were always correct, you wouldn't believe it was a novel.
Right.
You would believe that it was a nonfiction book. So Wikipedia is fine with me.
But you don't feel like when you're writing it. See, I would be nervous. I would go like, oh, what if that's not right, or what? Then somebody's going to.
I don't give a shit about that. No, it's fiction. It's fiction.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clearing that up.
And I love to write nonfiction if it's like a polemic, but for fiction, I enjoy that more actually.
Okay.
So, but actually, if no hands shoot up this minute, I give you to there's a hand. Okay, go for it.
Jane, talk to us about when you were invited to North Dakota.
I got into a situation with North Dakota. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a state.
I thought it was where the Buffalo Commons were.
They roam up there. I wrote a column making fun of North Dakota because they wanted to attract tourists there and get people to stay there, and nobody wants to go to North Dakota. If you go there, they'll pull you over and say, "Do you want to be in the legislature?" So they had this conference to figure out how to get people to come there, and one of the things they talked about, and apparently seriously considered, was changing the name of the state from North Dakota to Dakota. The thinking being, that's
Did they
what
consult the South Dakotans about that?
I don't think, then they thought nobody will want to go to South Dakota anymore. So I thought that was really stupid, and I wrote a column making fun of it, and whoa, you think Salman Rushdie got in trouble. First of all, I got an angry letter from everybody in the state, which is nearly 115 letters, and then but the really fiendish part of their revenge scheme, they invited me up there in January, and they dedicated a sewage lifting station in my honor. This is absolutely true. If you go to Grand Forks, North Dakota, for any reason, such as your plane has crashed there, there is a brick building, and on it, and it's a little bit of a tourist attraction, I'm telling you, on it in foot-high letters, it says Dave Barry Lift Station number 16. And inside is equipment that lifts the sewage, which is a concept I do not understand. Like me, I would leave the sewage down there, but...
Well, I think they're letting it freeze.
I think they're bored. I think they're just like, let's see what we got, So they had this ceremony where they put a brown piece of paper over the sign, and it was really, really cold. And there actually were people there. And the mayor of Grand Forks read a proclamation very eloquently comparing my work to the production of human excrement. And then at the big moment, they had me tear off the piece of paper, the big dedication moment. And I remember seeing my name up there and smelling the sewage in the cold North Dakota air and hearing whoop, 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 whoop. It's just the sound of people applauding in mittens, you know. So it was, so that was my North Dakota experience. That's the last time I was there, interestingly enough.
Had you been there before?
Never before or since.
Once in a lifetime.
No, that was, I just felt that I'd seen it, you know, and smelled it.
Anyone else have a question? Yes, right here in the front.
You were a columnist for many years before you retired back in 2004. Do you ever miss having a regular column?
The question is, I was a columnist for many years before I retired, and do I ever miss having a regular column? Not really. The closest I came was, I mean, I did it, I wrote a column for almost 25 years, and just, I wasn't like it was, anything bad was happening. It was more like I thought, you know, someday I'll get tired of this, and I'd rather stop while I still like it and people still want me to do it than to keep doing it until they don't want me to do it anymore. So I stopped, and you know, the reason I wrote this book really is that I thought, well, I had a bunch of ideas in the ensuing years that I thought could be a column, but most of them were like longer ideas. So that's what led me to write this. And I still occasionally do write columns for the Herald, and I write a year in review every year and stuff like that. But I don't miss writing every week at all, not at all.
Right there.
Could you tell us about this interesting hotel you stayed at in Manhattan?
Well, I tell you about the interesting hotel I stayed at in Manhattan. I'm not sure which one you mean. The dark one? Yeah. There is this trend. Have you noticed this? When I don't know, you were in New York.
I noticed the dark trend, yeah.
You go in these hotels and like you need a miner's helmet to find your room. You walk in.
There's one of those in Times Square.
Yeah.
Right near where the terrorist incident took place.
Yes.
Which is probably reason for the terrorist.
They were trying to light up the hotel?
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case you were aware, I think we were both in New York right after the bomb, and it is not a city gripped by fear.
Absolutely not.
It's like the attitude, like if that had happened in like Cleveland or St. Paul, Minnesota, everybody go, whoa, terror, there was a bomb. And in New York, it's like, what a freaking moron, you know? What kind of detonator did the guy have? You know? But anyway, these hotels, they're like, you can't even find the front desk. First of all, everything's dark and everybody's wearing black. And then sitting around are these really hip people drinking cocktails wearing only black. You can't even see the people in it. Just cocktails floating around, you know. And I don't see that. I'm old. I don't see that well anywhere. You know, it's like I'm like putting on reading glasses to try to read the like it's.
Yeah, the bad thing is that your room, the carpet is dark gray or black, and so when you spill stuff and then you walk into it, you know. And you know that many other people have spilled stuff on that same carpet and never cleaned it up either.
And sometimes there's another person in your room and you don't even see that person. You'll get in bed and like, whoa, it was dark, you know. So, was that you?
Not this time.
No, okay.
Over there, in the hat.
I'm sure you're aware that you are published in the Bedford Reader that is studied by college students in rhetoric. How do you feel about college students sort of picking apart and analyzing your writing, your text?
That's very disturbing. I didn't know that. You know, I'm sure this has happened to Jane more than this happened to me. When they start studying you in college, what is even worse is when they start studying you in high school or junior high school. And what happens to me is some teacher will say, you know, is teaching some class in humor writing and will make some group of 7th or 8th or 9th grade kids, and which, just for the record, is when they have the least sense of humor of their entire lives. They make them read a column I wrote that was never intended for them. You know, I was meant to be read voluntarily by grown-ups in the newspaper. Suddenly is being forced on these kids. This is funny, read it and tell me why, you know. And then I want you to all write a letter to Mr. Barry, and then they send me this packet of things in it, and it's like, I'll read them, and like, some will say it's funny, and some will say, my teacher made me read it, but I didn't really think it was that good. And my feeling's like, fuck you, kid, you know? I didn't ask you to read it, blame your teacher to read, you know? But I don't actually say that to the student.
Do you respond to all your mail?
What I'll do is say, I'll write a letter that says, thanks for sharing this massive paper with me, Ms. Teacher.
Okay, someone way in the back standing up, you can.
Yeah, is there another writer who writes about Florida who you think is pretty accurate? Or is there a writer you really enjoy reading who writes about Florida?
Carl Hyacin, the great Carl Hyacin, who kind of invented a whole genre. I call it the Bunch of South Florida Wackos genre of novel writing, and has many. There have been many since Carl, but he pretty much invented that particular genre. And Carl is a friend of mine, and as he has said more than once, you really don't need an imagination to be a novelist in Florida. You just need a subscription to the Miami Herald, because anything you could dream up is likely to be exceeded by something that actually happens there the next day, you know. It's the only place I know of where machine gun fire breaks out at a baby shower. And that's happened more than one, not one time, more than one time.
Yes.
Today, what was like a series of actions that happened in your life that showed you or told you that you needed to be or wanted to be a writer?
Was there a series of actions in life that showed me or told me that I wanted to be a humor writer, a writer? More, it was a series of non-actions. That is to say, at no point did I ever acquire what we would call a useful skill. The only thing I was ever any good at was making jokes and getting people to laugh. And but I didn't really. And I was a reasonably good writer, but not like Jane, not a serious writer. I just could write sentences. So I went to work for a newspaper and covered municipal meetings, some of which are still going on. I think that pretty boring stuff. And then when I could, I would write a column, a humor column, for this little paper that I worked at when I got out of college, called the Daily Local News in Westchester, Pennsylvania. But they weren't paying me to do that. They were paying me to be a reporter. And then I left there and did some other things, but I kept writing this column. And they paid me $22 a week to write it. This is in the 70s. And that was not enough to live on, so I figured I was going to, for the rest of my life, do something else. And for a while, I was teaching effective writing seminars and that sort of thing. But what happened that changed it for me was my son was born in 1980, and I was a member of the baby boom generation. And the thing about us is that we believe that whatever is happening to us is the most interesting thing that ever happened to anybody in the world. And we were all having babies around then, and it didn't really occur to us that previous generations had also had babies. We thought that was our idea, And we, of course, had a special way of having babies because we're the baby boomers, and our way is what we call natural childbirth, where, like when my mom had me, and it was the tradition, back then they gave the mom a lot of drugs, and then she woke up when the child was in like 4th grade, And it was a damn good system for everybody. And the dad was nowhere near that happening, He was off smoking cigarettes somewhere. So then they changed it for us. We had to do it our way, where there would be no drugs because it would be natural and it would be wonderful, and the dad would be right there coaching the wine, So I went to these classes, and we all went to these classes and it was completely bullshit, because they would talk about you breathe and the pain and this, it'll be fine, and then you actually get into the birthing room and it's like you can't.
That's the husband. The wife.
Yeah.
Because I was the wife and it was fine.
You're really okay?
Absolutely, 3 times.
Okay, well, superwoman. But anyway.
No, all the women were fine, but the husbands were writhing.
I wish I'd never.
Fainting, passing out.
That was
me.
me.
Oh my God, I did this to her. Oh, gee.
Well, I wasn't getting the most positive reaction from my wife either. But anyway, so had I known, I would have had a baby with you. Anyway.
So many hands.
So I wrote an essay, a longer humor piece about natural childbirth versus, and it was just the right time because so many, well, you know, the whole newspaper business was at that point, all these people my age were becoming editors and so on, and it got printed in the Philadelphia Inquirer Sunday magazine, and it was big, it got a lot of attention, and I got paid $350 for it, which is the most I'd ever been paid for writing.
That's a lot of money.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd never been paid anything like that for writing humor, and then like 2 days later, after I got a call at home from the Chicago Tribune Sunday magazine editor saying he'd seen that piece and he wanted to reprint it in the Chicago Tribune.
And more money.
Well, here's what he said. Was the big eye-opener for me. He said, "How much do you want for it?" And I said, "Well, I've already gotten $350, you know." So I said, "Well, how about $50?" And he goes, there's a pause, and he goes, "How about $500?" You know? And I said, "Okay," you know. Now what I should have done is gone down to 25, and he would have gone up to 1,000, you know. But that was when I discovered that you could make money writing humor, and that you could sell one piece to more than one, you know. So and then that one piece got my name out there more, and that's really, it sort of happened to me more than I never said I'm going to become a humor writer, and that's going to be. I didn't even know you could do that, and at that point in my life, I was in my 30s, and I thought I was never going to make a living that way. So.
Well, do your kids laugh at your jokes?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, they're like my son. I wrote a lot of stuff about my son when he was a baby, and at some point he learned to read, and I don't know how that happened, you know, but that was a mistake. And then he realized I'd been writing about him, so we had to have a deal, which is that I would never write about him unless he could read it first, and so I had the same deal with my daughter, and they don't object. I have made it really clear that if I can't write humor, then we can't, you know, have a swimming pool. Yeah,
right. I have to say, I've never written about my kids, but I did write one story in which, and this was about a little child who came to spend the night for a sleepover, and she woke up, she must have been about 10, and my husband wanted, you know, he said, "How can I help you go to sleep?" And she said, "Read me the TV guide." And so he sat next to her and read aloud from the TV guide, and that put her to sleep. That's the only thing I ever put in that actually was about my kids.
And it worked?
It worked.
TV guide.
You want to tell us about the Wienermobile story?
Well, okay. One of the reasons maybe my children are not so amused by their father, I have this theory of parenting by embarrassing. I got a call once at the Miami Herald from the Oscar Mayer Corporation saying they're bringing the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile to Miami. The Wienermobile, I'm sure, a giant fiberglass hot dog in a bun with a loudspeaker, sits on a truck body. There actually are 6 Wienermobiles. A lot of people don't know that. This nation.
Are they based in Wisconsin?
They are. They're based in actually, it might be Chicago.
Okay.
But anyway, the point is we lead the world in Wienermobile technology. Although Iran is developing one. So anyway, they like to get publicity for the Wienermobile, so they called me up at the Miami Herald and said, we're bringing the Wienermobile to Miami. Would you like to drive it for a day? And I said, heck yes. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to pick my son up in middle school because there he is in peer pressure hell, you know.
Oh God!
Never get the moment. Rob.
That is really cruel.
It was awful. Yeah. He came out. You know, he comes out. He doesn't know this is happening. God, there's all these moms in their minivans, and then looming up is a really big hot dog with a loudspeaker.
Like, Rob Berry, please report to the Wienermobile.
Now, I'll tell you, if a 13-year-old could suffer a heart attack, he would. And wait, I know you're thinking.
I think he's coming to your funeral.
Yeah. You're saying, well, you scarred your child psychologically for life, and yes, it was worth it.
Okay, I think we have time for about 2 more questions. You had your hand up for a while. You can say one.
I noticed a lot of your comedy in your books is based on exaggeration, like, you know, how few people there are in North Dakota, things like that. How did that come about? And do you think about, like, how much to exaggerate, like 10,000 is funnier than 2,000, things like that?
It's actually a very perceptive question. The question is, a lot of my humor is based on exaggeration, and do I think about it? You know, and yes, I spend a lot. That is the nature of humor writing. I will spend, like, is it better to say stick the tube 17,000 feet up your butt or 100 feet up your butt? Obviously, it's better to say 17,000 feet up your butt. You know. But you can't say 3 million feet up your butt because that's unrealistic. You know, but that is exactly the kind of calculus.
So it's a thin edge. It's
Right,
a thin
exactly.
edge.
And you can't lose your readers.
Okay, the one whose hand is straight up in the air, mustache and beard right there. You can be
Look
next.
what you've done. Look what you've done.
Fucking sorry. You can be next who's waving. You can be now.
Dave, my question is, you started your morning with the former mayor of Los Angeles, and I think Dick is maybe in his 80s now, and now you're with Jane Smiley. I wanted you to compare and contrast the two interviews, and also, is there anything that happened to you throughout the day in Los Angeles that you will include in one of your future books?
Up till now, no. Yeah, that's true. Dick Reardon, which is the best name ever, interviewed me this morning. I'd say the big difference is that Jane may have actually read the book. And well, I like Dick Reardon here, but this was much more, how do I put it? Intellectually challenging, I would say. Dick more was like, Dave, what about kids? You know. So anyway, that was more Dick's style. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, way in the back, yes.
Speaking of wieners, she wanted me to ask you about sex. I know you've covered all the bases, a little bit of appropriation in New York. She wanted to know about sex.
What is it she wants to know about sex?
Lauren, what would you like to know about sex?
Pro or con? I think sex is, it's good. In fact, a lot of this book is devoted to explaining what is the problem between the sexes.
Well, sex and gender issues.
Sex and gender issues, why it's so difficult for men and women to communicate. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I think I've isolated the problem. Women.
Have we not communicated?
Yeah.
Have we not?
Except for Jane Smiley. But anyway, well, listen. I think we're done.
Well, but I have one last question.
Okay, Jane's question.
Given my vast experience of men of your age, which is slightly older than me, I do have to ask, how did you manage to retain your hair?
Thank you. Well, what makes you think this is my hair? No, this is exactly the same haircut I've had. If you look at a picture of me when I'm like 5, it's the.
I'm not surprised.
And when I get a haircut, they do all this stuff to it, and they put products on it.
Look at that hairline. It's
Exactly.
really enviable.
And so for a brief moment, when I come out of the hairstylist, I look like a grown-up. And then, and it's this again, but I don't really know.
You never had a crew cut? They never gave you a buzz cut when you were a kid?
My dad used to do that. My dad used to cut my hair and he was a good Presbyterian minister, but he was really a shitty barber. And he would like go on one side for a while, and then he'd go, oh, I should do the other side now. And basically I had the same haircut as an egg, but it grows back, and it's a good thing.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane.
Coming.
Jane Smiley.